I will not say who they were. So, it is my habit to preach from down here because I want to connect. And when you're closer, I can connect with you a little bit better. So Papa, Ellie said, she said, Papa, I'm worried because who's going to take care of me when you go on a long trip? And some of you know that we have a couple of grandkids, and if you looked in our car outside, you would see we have our own car seats, and they stay in the car all the time because we care for them a lot. And this last week, Ellie was sitting in my lap, and we had this conversation. I don't know where it came from, but she was worried. What if you go on a trip, who's going to take care of me? And so we talked about the fact that she was surrounded by people who loved her and that we would never leave her alone. And she had her mommy and her daddy and her papa and her mamaru, and there was always someone there to take care of her. And kids, sometimes they get a little bit confused about roles and names and different things. And you know what? So do we sometimes. So how many of you know what 3-in-1 oil is? Okay, how many of you have that little flat bottle with red and white and black on it? How many of you have a bottle of 3-in-1 oil in your house right now? Okay, so do I. All right, I can remember, little kid, there's always a bottle of 3-in-1 oil. So, interesting thing. In the March 1930 edition of Good Housekeeping, the author recommended very highly that you use 3-in-1 oil on a rag to polish and clean your furniture. Your furniture. Is that a surprise to anybody? Anybody use 3-in-1 oil on your furniture? I don't know. It was a big deal. So the marketing motto that they say, and it's on the bottle, it says, cleans, protects, lubricates. Those three things. Cleans, protects, lubricates. That's their thing. So is it one of those? Is it all of those? Is it one of those sometimes and other times it's the other? Is it all of them all at once? What is it? I don't know. And I think that's very related to sometimes how we figure out Jesus and how he fits in our lives, in our world, what his role is, what his name is, how everything fits together. And whether it's 3-in-1 oil or Ellie and the different roles that people have around her, I think we can get a little confused sometimes about who's on first and who does what around us. Let's bow our heads for just a moment. Jesus, all I want is for us to find you in just a little bit different way today. Amen. So, we read in John 1, right? And the first words in John 1, anybody remember a few seconds ago? What was it? In the beginning. Have we heard those words before, anywhere, maybe? Another book in the first chapter, maybe the first verse, yeah. Maybe Genesis, yeah. So Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, everything that we know and see and things that we don't know. But this is, then we start getting confused, because like, okay, so who created again? Is it God the Father? Was it God the Son? Was it the Holy Spirit? Who was on first back then? So And there's been a lot of discussion about this. But I have 3 texts, and there are many others, but I have 3 texts that I want you to look up. Don't take my word. I want you to look up. I think we can clarify this just a bit. And in that clarity, I think there is great power. So, if you didn't look it up already, please go to the Good News About Jesus written by John, chapter 1, verse 1. And John, okay, remember that John is the disciple. He had his own name for himself, and you can find it later on in the book. And you could consider it to be a little bit pompous, but it's sort of funny. He refers to himself as the disciple whom Jesus loved. Well, it's easy when you're the author of the book. You can say whatever you want. So, in John 1, okay, we know from other places, and this is not meant to be an exhaustive, we could study forever on this. We already know who the Word is from other places. The Word is whom? God. And of the Trinity, whom? Okay, thank you. Okay. So in John it says, in the beginning was the Word. Okay, in the beginning was Jesus. And Jesus was with God. Oh, and by the way, Jesus was God, right? Through him, all things were made. Okay. So that's one. Okay, now we're going to flick a little bit further back in the Bible. Colossians, interestingly, chapter 1. It's not verse 1 this time, though. It's verse 16. Colossians 1:16. And context is important, right? But we're not going to read the whole chapter right now. And so you can read it later, or you can just take my word for it. But the context is speaking of Christ the Son. That's the context. Okay? For by him, Christ the Son, for by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things were created by him and for him. Pretty straight up, right? That's what I need. I need to have it be just pretty straight up and clear. That's what I need. Let's try another one. Let's turn to the book of Hebrews. Guess what? Chapter 1, verse 2. Very close to the beginning this time. I don't think it's by accident that this truth comes up at the beginning of the books in which it is written. I don't think that's by accident. Hebrews 1, verse 2. And it's talking of Christ the Son. His Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. Okay, so who was the God of creation? Are you comfortable with that? Was it Jesus, right? Okay. John said it was God, the Word. You know, Paul said it was Christ, the Son. It was Jesus. Jesus. The one that died for me is the one that created me. I think there's great power in knowing that. I think that one day on the Sea of Glass, things are going to click about roles and names and how what we know of as the Trinity all fits together, and it's all going to click. We're going to say, wow, that's amazing. Right now, we just get little pieces, and it's a little confusing sometimes. And guess what, guys? Confusing is okay, all right? As long as you trust Jesus and hang on. It'll get cleared up. A little bit of confusing is okay. So we agree that Jesus is the Creator God, okay? So who breathed into Adam then? You think? Okay, so, okay, ladies, don't get the big head here. Don't look, but in the account, you know this to be true. So when Jesus created Adam, he made a mud pie. When Jesus created Eve, he did a very complex transplant surgery. Don't get a big head, ladies, but I'm just saying. Something special happened when he made you all. So who was the one that was walking in the garden looking for his wayward kids? Doesn't exactly tell us straight up using the name Jesus, but if we understand that Jesus is the Creator God and the one that was engaged in this new thing, doesn't it follow that he was probably the same one that was walking looking for his oopsie kids that were making oopses already? Okay, so who was the one that made their first set of clothes? God did. I would like to suggest that it was Jesus Christ. What were they made out of? Okay, now this is not in the Bible, but you can assume some things. Where did those skins come from? Who had to kill those first animals to create those skins? Jesus Christ. And I'm out on a limb here a little bit here, but I'm telling you this for a reason. You can believe that part or not, but it makes sense, at least. Can you imagine what went through Jesus' mind having to kill one of his creations to clothe another and understand the cascade of events that would go for thousands of years that he already knew about and already bought into and already had a plan for when he took those first lives to take care of his kids? So let's look at a different story. Turn to Genesis 18, just a few chapters later. Genesis 18, big name in the Bible, big name in Jewish history. Abraham. Abraham, he was a rich man. He had hundreds of employees, huge family, extended family, no son. This was a big deal back then. One day, 3 visitors came down the driveway. Would it be the tent way? The camel way? I'm not sure. Came down the road to his place. And the Bible says that they sort of hesitated. Like, they came to turn the corner and they kind of... And Abraham was hanging out in the shade of his tent, and middle of the day, it's hot, and he sees them, he runs right out. Hey, come on in, we'll take care of you, it's hot. Here, come under this tree here, chill out a little bit, and we'll fix you some food. He went right out there to get them and brought them in, these three men. Okay, so he turns to his wife, and he says, hey, Sarah, get 3 seahs of flour. And I thought, what's that? Okay, so how many of you bake bread yourself? You bake bread. Okay, so if you bake bread, so how many cups of flour for 1 loaf, would you say? 5? Okay. 5 or 6. Anybody else? several cups. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's say it's 5. Okay, do you know how much flour 3 seahs is? Depending on the way you figure it, it's 80 cups, or a 50-pound bag of flour. Okay, hey Sarah, grab that 50-pound bag of flour and bake some bread for my guests. Okay, so this isn't just like, okay, whip up a pancake in a pan or a tortilla or something and, okay, we got it. 50 pounds of. Oh, and then he runs out and he gets a calf that has been cared for and is very young and tender and everything. So they slaughter the calf and they're preparing the calf and then they're roasting or whatever they're doing. And then he also brings some cottage cheese. Yeah, that's in there. Bring some cottage cheese. I'm not sure how all that goes together. Bread and calf and then cottage cheese, but that was the thing. So this was not, okay, let me grab something out of the fridge and let's sit down and have a snack. This was a big ordeal. How long do you think that took? 30 minutes or 3 hours? I mean, bread has to rise. It takes a minute or 2. So this is a big deal is what I'm trying to say. So this is a big deal. So they're making this meal. So they finally get to the meal. This is later in the day by now. It's late afternoon, who knows. They're having their meal, and so I'm gonna jump to an assumption here, and you can just kind of catch on the train with me, or you can doubt me. One of those 3 was Jesus Christ. And we can find some evidence of that, but we're not going to take the time to do that. One of those was Jesus Christ. And Jesus turns to Adam and says, hey, Adam. I keep saying Adam. Hey, Abraham, where's your wife? Oh, she's in the tent over there. Well, and the Bible does say where exactly she was. She was right inside the door listening to everything they were saying out there. And she wasn't going to miss anything. And apparently she wasn't at the meal because Jesus asked, where is she? She's in the tent over there. Oh, well, I just wanted to let you know, Abraham, that by this time next year, she's going to have a son. So Abraham's cool with that. Meanwhile, Sarah inside the tent is laughing to herself, saying, I'm worn out, and my husband's a geezer. This ain't happening. So Jesus turns to Abraham and says, why is your wife laughing about this? I mean, she's in the tent, and Jesus knows what's in her mind back there. I'm just making sure you're clear about this. Well, Sarah hears this because she's just right inside the tent. And so she pops her head out. She says, I wasn't laughing, she says to Jesus. And Jesus says, oh yeah, you were. That's hilarious. I'm just going to say, that's hilarious to me. I mean, can you imagine that conversation, you know? I mean, Jesus doesn't hear her through the air clearly like a human would hear her laughing. She's back inside the tent there. She's laughing to herself, but he knows. He calls her on it. She lies, and he calls her on it. I don't know. I just think that's hilarious. And I just would have loved to hear that. Can you imagine the friendship connection that existed right there? This is not an unknown visitor by now. This is someone who knows Abraham, and Abraham knows him. And they were close enough that he could Tease his wife just a little bit. That's close. I think that's important. So finally, the three men get up and they're getting ready to go on their way. And we have no idea in the story right now where they're going. The story doesn't tell us yet. So they're going on their way. So Abraham, oh, see, I didn't say Adam that time, actually. So Abraham walks along with them for a bit. And Jesus stops, and the two men keep going. And this is in the biblical account. Jesus is talking to himself and says, should I tell him what I'm up to? Should I tell him? Yeah, I probably should, because I have really invested myself in Abraham, and he is going to become a great nation, and he is going to rep for me in his family and in his world. Yeah, I should tell him. You look in there. It's Jesus talking to himself. This is not out loud. He's talking to himself, making the decision. Do I bring Abraham in on what's about to happen? So he says to Abraham, say, hey, I'm headed down to Sodom, and I'm going to see if it's really as bad as they say it is. And I think I can probably tell. That's about all he says. And so Abraham hears this, and you've got to imagine, okay, so what's going around in his head? Because he knows very well what Sodom is like. Why do you think he's living out there? Right? So in his mind, all these things are rolling around, and all these things that he knows about Jesus, his friend, and everything. And so he starts talking. Okay? He starts talking. And by the way, did Jesus say anything about, oh, I'm going down to Sodom because I'm going to wipe the place out? Did he say anything about that? Now, I didn't tell you that just now, and if you look in the account, you can see when he was talking to himself and when he was talking to Abraham, he did not say, I'm going to go down there and burn it up. He said, I'm going to go down there and see if it's as bad as everybody says it is, and I think I can tell. That's all he says. Pretty minimal. I'm going to check. That's all he says. So Abraham is just like in his mind, whatever he's thinking about, right? Okay, so he's like, okay, yeah, Jesus, Sodom is really bad. They're really messed up down there. They are not following you, and they are confused about their identities. They're confused about relationships. They are really messed up down there. And yeah, it's probably time for you to go down there and destroy it. Is that what he said? No. No, he didn't. If you look in verse 23, here's exactly what he said. That Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Now, make some assumptions about that sentence. Abraham is assuming that justice is about to occur. He's just making the assumption. There is great evil, and evil must be dealt with. And Jesus hates evil. Do you agree? Yes. And so he's processing, he's thinking, okay, this evil can't continue. Jesus is going to do something about it. This is what he's thinking. He's just making the assumption. Jesus is down here, he's talking about it. He's going to do something about this evil. Oh boy. And so what is his response? Okay, wait just a minute, Jesus. Are you going to go down there and kill off all the righteous ones and the evil ones too? So in verse 24, he starts this long, protracted conversation. But what if there's 50 Jesus followers in Sodom? Will you burn it all up then? No, Abraham, if I find 50 that follow me, I will not. Yeah, but he's thinking in his mind, I don't know if there's 50. So he works it down and down and down and down. 6 times he gives Jesus a different number until he gets it down to 10. And Jesus says, no, Abraham, if I find 10 that follow me, I will not destroy it. And every time, he very gently and humbly says, hey, don't be mad at me, Jesus, but okay, let me ask you again and again and again. So my question for you is, so in this whole conversation, was Abraham actually convincing Jesus not to go down there and burn the whole thing up? Was he actually changing Jesus' mind? You think? We don't really know for sure, do we? But what we do know is, so who's the expert on grace around here? Okay, just saying. So what was the point of all of that then, if Jesus already knew that he was going to find some way to save those that could be saved? If he already knew that, what was the point of all this? Well, okay. This is where I'm going to play a little guesswork with you. But if you read the story and then you read it again and you think about it really hard, you might be able to think that maybe I might be right. I think that entire visit, from when they walked by his tent and hesitated, and that's what they did, it says in there, they hesitated, hoping to get an invite, and all the way through to where Jesus stayed behind and left his other 2 go on ahead, waiting to see what Abraham would do. Here's my theory. Jesus wanted nothing more than to allow Abraham to stretch and grow and to understand a little bit more about the balance of justice and grace and to understand a little bit more about his own character. What would be the point otherwise? Jesus was going to do what Jesus was going to do. Jesus was investing in Abraham and wanted Abraham to experience this with him, to stretch him to be more like Jesus. Boy, I tell you, wouldn't it be great to be as good as Abraham, to be able to experience something like that, huh? Okay, let me tell you something about Abraham. Now, one of the first stories that we have in the Bible about Abraham, so he's found his wife, he's married his wife, he's a newlywed, and they're off to all of their big road trips that they're doing all the time. And there was a famine in Canaan where they were pointed to by God, and so they went to Egypt. And so Abraham was thinking about this. He was like, okay, when I go down there, Pharaoh, he pretty much takes everything he sees. I got a beautiful wife. I'm scared for my life. And, well, I can identify with that. Not the scared for my life, but the beautiful wife part. I can identify with that. I'm going to call her my sister. Yeah, that'll do it. Then they won't kill me. So he does. And so this did not work well. So Pharaoh said, well, it's not his wife, it's his sister. Okay, no problem. So she can come live with me then. Okay. So he takes her, and then everybody in Pharaoh's house gets seriously sick. I mean, really sick, including Pharaoh, according to the story. Really sick. And so Pharaoh finally figures out, I don't know, he has a spy in the camp, he figures out, and he lays into Abraham, what are you trying to do to me? This is not your sister, it's your wife. Well, it's sort of my sister. Come on. So that happened, okay? That happened. So you think, okay, so Abraham learned his lesson. Okay, he called his wife, you know? This is his wife. So then we just went through this story about Jesus visiting Abraham's tent, right? And we talked about that a bit, that whole experience, right? Okay, so just let your mind run. You know where the story is going. Okay, so the whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing, the whole Lot debacle, not the best story, really. Lot had a lot of problems. He had a lot of family issues that didn't stop with Sodom and Gomorrah. A lot of mess in there. All that story happened, okay? Time passes. Okay, so then soon after that, then Abraham moves again. So there's a lot of flocks and herds, and so they're transient. They're moving where the pasture is, so they move again. So he moves into a different part of the country, and it's not Egypt, but it's another part of Canaan, and there are these local chieftains or kings or whatever. So he goes into this area, and there's another king. He's like, oh man, you know, she may be old, but she's still pretty hot. I'm concerned that this king in this local area is going to be after her. Oh yeah, let's do the whole sister thing again. Did he not learn the first time? So he's like, okay, let's trot out the whole sister story. And Sarah does it. I mean, she follows along, bless her heart. So guess what happened? The same thing as the last time. So Abimelech, is another king, takes Sarah. Well, she's not married. She's a sister, okay. So it's okay. It's legal. You know. Takes Sarah. Okay, so turn, if you would, Genesis 20, verse 3. You gotta see this for yourself so you're not completely taking everything I say. Genesis 20, verse 3. I'm going to read this, but just look in there. This is just amazing. Okay, so Abimelech is not a Jesus follower, okay, according to the account at least. In fact, I think just before, or somewhere in the story, Abraham says, okay, we're going into an area where these are a bunch of they don't worship God. There's this bunch of evil people that we better trot out the whole sister story again. Okay, so Genesis 20, verse 3. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, you are as good as dead, buddy, because of the woman you have taken. She's a married woman. This is God speaking to Abimelech in a dream. Now, Abimelech had not gone near her, so he said, this is still in the dream, we think, Lord, okay, stop 1 second. So this is not a God follower. But in the dream, he recognizes that he is speaking to the God of the universe. Don't you think that's interesting? Inside every created being is the ability to recognize the Creator. Don't you think? So he said, Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did Abraham not say, she is my sister? And didn't she also say, he is my brother? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands, not my fault. Then God said to him in the dream, yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience. And so I have kept you from sinning against me. That's why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife. Okay, so Abraham has deceived yet again. Okay, this is just after this story in chapter 18 when he is basically interceding with Jesus for the righteous in Sodom. Was Abraham a Jesus follower? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, he was. A sinful, failing follower just like me. Turn to 2 Chronicles 20, verse 7. I'm giving you a little bit of a workout here. 2 Chronicles 20. After Genesis, before Psalms. How's that for narrowing it down for you? 2 Chronicles 20, verse 7. Okay, Jehoshaphat was a Jesus follower and had some very dramatic stories in his own life about that. He is praying, and if I remember the context, he's praying publicly. He had no qualms about making sure his country knew who he followed. In his prayer, and you can see it in verse 7, so you know that I'm not making this up, he refers to Abraham, your friend. Okay, good. All right, let's flip forward to Isaiah 41, verse 8. Just in case you think that maybe Jehoshaphat was just being poetic about history. Isaiah 41. And by the way, if you don't recognize this already, Isaiah is just as much a book of poetry as the Psalms. And 41 is right in the middle of some beautiful poetry. And guess who spoke it? Jesus. And he spoke it to Isaiah for us. Do you ever think about Jesus being a poet? Isaiah 41:8. Jesus says to his people, to us, but you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, you descendants of Abraham, my friend. Now, think we can take Jesus' word for that, probably? Yeah, probably so. Okay, so Abraham was considered by Jesus to be his friend. Oopses and all, right? Okay, this is a critical point, folks. Really critical point. As you know, it may not sound like it, but it really is. So in one part of my life, I do bridging leadership for hospital labs that are in trouble in some way. And so one of the most effective things that I've found to do in a new hospital lab where I'm in, it's usually a huge hospital, so there's anywhere between 100 and 300 employees in the lab, and they're in some sort of crisis in some way. Either they lost a leader, or the leader's in trouble, or something's happened. And so I come in and try to help out. And so one of the most powerful things I have found to do is I will be there in the morning before night shift goes home. And I will walk up and down in between all the equipment, and I will chat people up and talk to them, and how'd your night go, and what's going on around here. I will go to staff huddles at shift change and just sit in the back and listen and answer questions or whatever. Walk up and down the halls, and whether it is supervisors or managers or frontline employees, they are shocked to think that, okay, the senior director is out here walking up and down the hallway talking to everybody. They're shocked, but they love it. They love it. And wherever I go and stand somewhere, all of a sudden there'll be 3 or 4 people, and we'll start talking, and they'll learn a little bit more. about what I stand for, how important I think they are, and what we can do together. People that write about leadership have different names for this. One of them is called management by walking around. It's a thing. It's a thing. Management by walking around. I have a name for it. It's called showing up. Leaders need to show up. They need to be visible. And I found that in my own professional experience and how powerful that can be. Let me tell you something. In the Old Testament, and we have stuck to one book, right? We've touched on two stories, a little bit about creation, a little bit about Abraham, right? Okay, two stories in one book. Jesus shows up. You hear me? Jesus shows up. You want to talk about an engaged leader, somebody that is invested in what's going on around him. It's Jesus. It's Jesus Christ. Okay. He is bought in to us. Okay? And we just touched on two stories. That's it. And there's tons of evidence in those two stories that Jesus is showing up. Okay? He didn't just like create, and then some people think this. Yeah, I believe that Jesus created, but then that's pretty much it. There's no engagement after that. So the last time I was here, it's been a few weeks ago, I touched on this, and since this seems to be a topic, I'm taking a little bit of license since I'm standing in front of you and have sound power. Okay, do not get confused, folks, by a lot of talk around nowadays about whether Jesus is fully God. Do not get bothered by the fact that the Trinity is something that we can't really quite completely get figured out. That's okay. Jesus seems to be clear on it. And if Jesus said it, I'm pretty much comfortable taking that. You agree? Can I get an amen out of that? Okay. Jesus seemed to be pretty clear about who he was, what he'd done, and how he fits. And my job is to hang on and learn from him, and he'll tell me whatever I need to know about how he fits. You know, names and roles are important. They're important to Jesus, they're important to us, they're important to Ellie, my granddaughter. She has multiple names. Elizabeth Ann is her legal name. Ann is related to her mother, that's her middle name. I call her Ellie Bug, and it's because in her first couple of years of life, she was so tiny. And she's bigger now, but she was very tiny then. And so that was my name for her. I always call her Ellie Bug. And so she knows if she hears somebody say Ellie Bug, it's me. Or just Bug. And she knows it's me. And she and her brother SJ have a special name for me. It's Papa. It's something we chose when they were born. Well, she's decided that it's super cute for her to say Pop. And so now she'll say, hey, Pop. I'm not sure whether I like that or not, but it has to do with roles and relationships. She has special names for me. I have special names for her. We're tight. We're connected, right? And different names mean different things. What I'm going to mention to you now, we could spend days discussing. I'm just going to touch on it to whet your appetite. There's stuff there that only a very experienced biblical scholar with an understanding of both cultures and languages could even come close to tapping. We're going to just touch on it, and that's this. In Genesis 1, there is a name applied to whom whom was the Creator. And in the original language, Moses writes, well, we interpret it as God, Elohim. Okay? That name right there has so much packed meaning into it, we can't even touch it right now. It means the strong one, the omnipotent one, the big kahuna. I mean, this is God. You know, the one. This is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, okay? That's Genesis 1. The big stuff that's happening in the dramatic, you know, the stars and all these things that are happening. This is Elohim. Shock and awe. Omnipotent, powerful, right? Okay, in Genesis 2, Moses starts referring to him differently. And I never knew this until I read it one more time. All of a sudden, instead of saying God, he says, Lord God. Well, what we read as Lord is Yahweh, Jehovah. And just like Elohim, there is hours and hours of packed meaning in that word that we could never touch in a couple of minutes. But him adding that name is because when we go from chapter 1 to chapter 2, we go from the shock and awe, big stuff, to relationship and the mud pie and the surgery and him connecting with Adam and Eve. It's a whole different gig. Yahweh is a personal name, and it implies relationship. There's still the Elohim tacked on. Okay, remember, this is the shock and awe God right here. But this is also the one that wants to connect with you. That's the Genesis 2. And now, is it the same person? Yes, it's the same person. But just like I might be Bob to my beautiful wife over there, I might be Papa to Ellie, I have different names that express different parts of myself, and I'm just little old me. Don't you think that God is big enough that one word won't cut it? Don't you think? Really? There's so much. And in just those two names, Moses, inspired by Jesus, is trying to give us just a little glimpse of the fact that Jesus, the Creator God, wants to buy into his creation. He's engaged. He is loving by walking around. He's showing up. It's a big deal. So 2 truths I want to leave you with. Two things, okay? So Jesus, you know, the one we sing about in the hymns, you know, it's common in Christian poetry and hymns. The word Jesus is out there. That Jesus that we're singing about all the time, the one in the Gospels, that Jesus is the same one that is named by Moses as the strong one, the God of creation. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is the one that created everything we can see and what we can't see, and you and me too. He's the Creator God. That's a big deal, folks. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more, because you'll have to listen to me once or twice more over the next few weeks. We're gonna talk a little bit about that some more, but it is pivotal that you are comfortable with the fact that the same Jesus that died for us is the one that created us. Number two, this same God, the one we know of as Jesus, this same God, names himself, starting in Genesis 2, in a way that lets us know that he wants to connect. He wants a relationship with us. And just like Rancher Fred and George, that relationship is not based on my lack of oopses, which is not going to happen this side of heaven. It's just because he loves me and I'm willing. That's it. He wants to connect with me and with you. He wants a relationship with us. He's bought in. He's showing up. He wants to show up with you one-on-one. There's a popular song from a few years back, and it repeats, "You had me at hello." In Jeremiah 1, you can look at this later, in Jeremiah 1, again, a book of poetry, much of which is written by Jesus Christ. This is what Jesus says to you. I can hardly say this out loud. Before I formed you in the womb, I chose you. Do you understand the power of that? Do you understand that the Creator God, the Elohim, before you were even a two-celled organism in your mother's womb, Jesus himself had already said, I pick you, I pick you, I pick you. And I want to connect personally, friendship-wise, just like that screw up in the Bible, Abraham, with you. I want to connect with you. Do you understand how big that is? So hear me now. If you have ever thought that somehow your oops made it to where you were not quite able to have a friendship with Jesus Christ, let me clarify for you right now. That is the evil one in your head that is speaking. It is not true. And my Bible said so. My Bible says, I was chosen before I was even in my mother's womb. I hadn't had a chance to make an oops yet. I was already chosen by him to be a friend. Okay? You believe me on the back row back there? I'm looking at you. Okay. Jesus is at the door knocking. He's right there. He's already there knocking. All you got to do is. He already picked you. Why don't we let him in?